Ladies and gentlemen, we begin this trial with a very simple premise. It is this: the concept of self-defense, while firmly established in the law, is not applicable in all situations. As a matter of fact, it's only justified in very limited situations, situations in which very specific criteria must be met. And, Bass said, that's not just me saying it, that's the law. Those are the instructions which the judge will give you. Self-defense can only be used as an affirmative defense when specific conditions are met. Here, ladies and gentlemen, is the bottom line truth of this case. This defendant's actions do not meet the criteria where he will be entitled to an acquittal. Put simply, as you learn the true facts of this case, you will realize that the killing of Remo Centrella was not a matter of self-defense. Now, let's be honest with ourselves. The defense is going to tell you something different. They're going to try and get you to acquit the defendant based upon a self-defense argument. That, ladies and gentlemen, would be incorrect under the law. It would be incorrect for several reasons. First, the doctrine of self-defense does not allow a person to be the aggressor. Second, the doctrine of self-defense does not allow a person the right to commit a felony. And thirdly, the doctrine of self-defense does not relieve a police officer or anybody else from the requirement they act in the way that a responsible man would. Unfortunately for this defendant, Bass said, he did not meet those requirements. Quite simply, the opposite. As this trial will show, prior to shooting Remo Centrella, the defendant did a surprisingly high number of things wrong. He acted in a way that one of our expert witnesses will tell you was incompetent. He was the aggressor in the situation. He used excessive force, and perhaps most egregiously, he failed to call for backup. To put it simply, ladies and gentlemen, this defendant's actions failed to meet the legal standard required for you to acquit him. This defendant, Bass said, and pointed directly at Dave, did not act in a reasonable manner. He acted in a manner that was reckless. It was his provocation, his negligence in rapidly escalating the situation that made it necessary to use excessive force, and it is for that reason the law will require you to vote him guilty. But for the accused mistakes, miscalculations, and recklessness, Bass said, and once again jabbed his finger toward Dave, Remo Centrella would be alive today, getting ready to play another season of baseball for the Atlanta Barons. Behind a look that conveyed an image of complete serenity, Whitney was studying the jury intently. He saw they were open to accepting Bass's argument. A dozen years after their first confrontation, Bass had become even better than Whitney had expected. There were no longer any rough edges to him. He looked and sounded as confident as if the jury had already delivered a guilty verdict. He wasn't even asking the jury to convict Dave. He was instructing them to do so. But it was more than just Bass's style that impressed Whitney. He thought the content and focus of his opening statement was almost pitch perfect. Bass had found the exact seam Whitney would have tried to exploit if he were prosecuting the case. The rapid escalation of the situation, Dave's failure to defuse it by calling for backup, and his initiation of the physical confrontation. They were all points Whitney knew would resonate with the jury, and they were all points Bass was clearly going to try and hammer into the jurors' minds. Now, let me take a moment to talk about this process, if I can, Bass said. I've been through enough jury cases in my career to know how stressful it is to serve on one. There's nothing fun about serving on a jury. That's why, when most people get a jury summons, the first thing they do is try and think of a way to get out of it. Am I right? There was some head nodding and even a couple of soft mm-hms from the jurors. But that's not what y'all did. No. Fortunately for us, y'all did the right thing. You stepped up to do your civic duty. You stepped up to make sure our justice system works, to make sure that this defendant gets his constitutional right to a fair trial.